Good day, brothers and sisters, One Nation Tribal Alliance, community, friends near, far, across the pond. Today we are continuing our weekly native talk. And today I believe our topic is going to be about um, the herbs that we use of the medicine wheel that we use to in our healing process, as well as I'm going to talk about the relics that we use for protection and cleansing. So, you know, this is going to be a very, very interesting topic because, a lot of people keep asking us what herbs we use, what relics we use for protection, for our ceremonies and all this. We might be able to touch a little surface on answering some of your questions. So I guess, being a gentleman, I'll let Eve start out. So,
Miigwech, miigwech. Bonjour, everybody. This was kind of touching a little bit towards. I had a interview yesterday, and we touched on with Brad Olson, tobacco, and how throughout as long as I can remember, how we've used plant medicine and plant like for healing modalities. So I think some of the ones that like Greg asked me, he's like, what do you use? Um, well, not only do I use tobacco, but I use it for, like offerings. Like if I make a spirit plate and I put it outside, we're supposed to put it in the trees, or up, so some, you're not feeding all the domestic animals that come walk by, but and then you put like tobacco on the plate as well, and it's like an offering. And it's not even I was talking to a friend of mine who studied in Medewin, which is like medicine. And he was like talking about like back in the day, when they had the tobacco, they couldn't smoke it. We weren't able to do our ceremonies or our sweat lodges or sun dances or anything like that until like the 1970s, I do believe. So we were, we did a lot of it in secret. So the secret was, that they would use just the tobacco, put it in a pipe, usually a ceremonial pipe, and then, they smoke it, but it's not inhaled. You don't inhale it like a cigarette or, probably like a cigar, like for people that smoke cigars. And it's a ceremony. It moves, the pipe is very sacred. There's always someone who's chosen to carry it. So it's used for like ceremonies, and it's also used, for offerings, prayer, and protection. Because I know like a little bit you tuck it, in your medicine bag and stuff. When you put different things. Not everybody has the same thing in their medicine bag. So, like what else do we have? We have sweetgrass, and usually it's like really kind of long. And when you braid it when you pick it, and it dries into a braid, and you have it tied off on the top and the bottom. And then this is what I do. I mean, every tribe is different. And I mean, there's a lot of people that don't know that. They don't know that we have like different languages and different traditions and different ways. And we all, came from different areas. So that kind of, was in establishing that too as well. So with the sweetgrass, I just like it either keep it like some people like to keep it in their car, for protection, in their house, over their doors, over their windows. And when you come to smudging, I like to do like if you're gonna do just like a normal, daily smudge, I'll just use one ingredient, which I'll get to that ingredient. But with sweetgrass, you can use that in conjunction with like two other ingredients. And I put it in I usually have my shell in here, but I must have took it in the other room. And I think I was doing a cleaning out in the living room, so my shell is out there right now. But I have just like a half of like I think it's like kind of like an oyster shell or some sort of a shell, and it holds like everything. You can use when you smudge everything, you just light it up and just let it go out, and then you kind of I use an eagle feather, and I understand not everybody has an eagle feather. You use a turkey feather. It just they said not blow on it, don't blow on it. So, and three of the best items are like other things that I use as well, besides the sweetgrass, is sage. And a lot of people, know the healing properties of sage, but it's been scientifically proven, and I don't have the test link or anything like that. Almost everybody has tell everybody, this is your time to do your own research. Don't rely on somebody else's research, because I could be wrong. But, if you go out and you do your own research, you could find something that I missed or, was the total 180 from what I said. But it's said to cleanse the air. So, you do a lot of like after people are sick or while they're sick, you smudge because you want to get rid of that sickness and it lingers in the air. So it cleans like air. So you're not using like those Febreze, where it says it's supposed to cling on to like,
All chemicals.
icky air. Yeah, it's chemicals. Now, this is not a chemical. This is something that purifies the air, offers protection, and I usually smudge myself down, which means I'll just try to get the smoke to go over me, down my shoulders. I'll have, someone hold it and smudge my back and stuff in the bottom of my feet. You just kind of go, down. And I add what is it? I also add cedar to that too. So there's sage, cedar, and sweetgrass. And cedar can be used in not only, like I think people use it in cooking, but we use it, we burn it, we use it like a smudge type. So you burn the end of it, you kind of wrap it around and then you burn it. I think I was like the one day I was worrying about it. I was like, oh my gosh, is it going to burn out? And my medicine man, I was like, it'll, well, as soon as it's done doing its job, it'll just turn itself off. You don't have to worry about it. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I mean, I grew up on the res, but I mean, it was like different. It was, you know, I don't know. My dad was weird about that. He was
Well,
like,
as we talk about different modalities about, herbs and all that, so we also use a
hmm
lot of relics. And,
yes.
one of our powerful relic is an arrowhead. You find an arrowhead out there,
hmm
or what they used to tell me was when I used to sheep herd with a Navajo medicine man, and he'd tell me, he said, when the lightning comes, watch where that lightning goes, because if a lightning strikes a tree after the fire, I mean, after, it's all said and done, don't go right away to the tree because you can't inhale that smoke when the
hmm
lightning struck the tree. But once it dies out and everything, then we'll go over there and we look for an arrowhead. It said that the lightning has an arrowhead in front of it, where that's why it could slice that tree in half without any problem because it's got a real strong power. And if you can find that arrowhead, you automatically are ordained to be a healer. Now, he said that you can be a healer, but you have to use that arrowhead as a relic to heal people. And so as soon as that, we'd be looking at it, and if lightning strikes a tree right after it rained and everything, right after it set up, normally the next day, we'll go to that tree and we'll look for the arrowhead.
hmm
And if we find it, well, he would be one happy man in the world because he said those things are hard to get.
Oh yeah.
And so that's one thing that we would always have an arrowhead, and a lot of people to this day will put arrowhead and put it around their neck and carry
hmm
it for protection.
hmm
So and another thing is that a lot of the Southwest tribes use, and I've seen Navajos use it, Hopi use, Zuni use it, is crystal. Crystal they use to stargaze and to look
hmm
around. It's like the third eye for them. They
Right.
look around to look for the dark. And so crystal gazing was another relic that people used, in the Southwest to really start looking for, the dark, that's hidden or buried in the house or in a person or in a car, wherever. They'll
hmm
use that to go find it. And so, crystals are being used for a lot of things. And another thing that they use a lot is what I call sandbar willow. Sandbar willows are used in a medicine thing to make a basket,
Yeah.
create a basket, and they use it for water ceremonies in a lot of tribes because water ceremonies they get the fresh, clean water, and whatever that object or whatever the sickness is, they'll put it in that basket and they'll put that fresh water on it. Water is spirit.
Hmm.
Water is spirit. So what good that good spirit will cover that dark and will basically dilute it and put it where it belongs. So when they have the object in the basket and they put water on it, and water dissolves that object and runs it through the sandbar willow basket, you know, it's gone. So, and the person will be whoever, is it for, will be getting healed, getting better. So, sandbar willows is another thing that I've seen being used. And also some of the things that they use is, which I think is real interesting, is that the Navajos use sand painting. They use their sand, they put the patient in the middle and they do sand painting all around it while their medicine men and the singers will sing and everything, all they bring all this. They really do a good design of
Hmm.
whatever when that patient is sitting on that earth, on that sand. And once it's finished and everything, to destroy that illness or the spell or whatever, they put it in that sand painting that the person is sitting on, and then they destroy it. So because it's like anything else, we talk about you talk about going out taking a half shell cleansing. We use abalone shell for cleansing. The abalone shell.
Yes.
Why? Because if you look inside the abalone shell, look at the design matrix on it. It is like a what would you call that? It's so designed so not in a right right way to where if a dart gets in there, it's lost forever
Hmm.
because it doesn't have a path to follow. So sacred geometry symbol is
That's
like that.
right.
If a
Yeah.
dart goes
I
into
couldn't think
the
of that.
sacred geometry, it gets lost in that configuration of the symbol. So that's that. I mean, there's a lot of things, and even feathers. You talk about you use an eagle feather. Well,
Hmm.
if you don't have the eagle feather, you can. To me, yes, if we could get a hold of an eagle feather, it's a blessing to get one. So you can make it out of one, and you can use it, whatever, and that's great. However, what also is good is that whatever resonates with you,
Right.
whatever you
Exactly.
have at the moment, because, one of the things that, we are taught is that, you know, if you see like, if you come upon an accident and you know the people, they're from your village and everything, you come upon an accident, you know, to take away their darkness or bad luck from the accident away from them so they don't bring it home, you get whatever you can find, like shrub or whatever you find on the ground, you grab it and it's like you cleanse the body with it and then you throw it out. You throw it out so the dark will follow that uh,
Hmm.
cleansing material that you just threw away with it. So, there are so many relics that we use, and in Zuni, our number one relic is cornmeal with turquoise. That's a spiritual cornmeal, what I call it. So when you say your
Spiritual
morning
karma.
prayers, yeah, when you say your morning
Love
prayers,
it.
we use that. I know the Navajos, they use what they call catatin, which is corn pollen. That corn pollen is hard to get because, I remember one summer I was told that you need to give me some catatin. I said, okay, how do you do it? So they said every morning before the sun comes up, you get out in the field and you say you thank the corn for giving you catatin. And I said, you pray, you thank them and everything, and you carry a plate and you get that stalk, that white stalk of a corn, you lean it over and you tap it. You tap it,
Hmm.
and the pollen out of that stalk will fall on the plate. And if you can get like a quarter ounce of it in that morning, you did real good. Quarter ounce of that catadine is gonna go a long way for the medicine man. And so we used to do that every morning, tap a little, and we get to where if we get just like an ounce or two of that catadine, boy, to a medicine man, that's worth a lot because you know you it's hard to get catadine. So anyway, that's one of the things that we use. So and another thing is your prayers. I've I've been challenged many a times by people saying, "You don't know your prayers. You don't know your prayers." I said, "What do you mean I don't know my prayers?" Well, you don't pray the way we were taught. We were taught. I said, you know what? To me, the way you were taught and the way I was taught was different. You were taught in the 80s. I was taught back in the early 60s when we had elders. When the
Hmm.
elders would teach us, they used to tell us that when you pray with your heart. You pray what's in your heart, not no, you know, how would you say, not no repetitive prayer. So
Yeah,
you don't pray repetitively,
it's
because
almost like ritual type memorization programming.
yeah.
I don't know.
So
I didn't say
that's
it was programming, but
yeah.
sorry.
So it's you know, I again, you know, there's so many ways that I have learned prayers. I learned a different way from the Buddhists. I learned it from the Tibetan people. They pray differently. The Buddhists pray differently, and you know, even in the Bible, it says differently. Yeah, we got the
Hmm.
prayer, "Our Father who art in heaven," but was that really what Jesus prayed about? To tell us to pray that? No, because right before that, Our Father comes up in the book of Matthew. He talks about if you want to pray to the Father, go into the closet, go in your own sacred spot, and talk to the Father. That's what you do. Prayers are what you are talking to yourself.
Hmm.
You are
Exactly.
talking to yourself. So that's what prayers are. So, you know, that's the way prayers should be. Not a repetitive prayer that was passed down to you, the same old thing over and over
Hmm.
again. Because
Hmm.
if everybody prayed the same thing, if you as a God, how would you take that? Same old thing. Everybody, same thing. What's the same thing? No, no, no.
Over and over and over every
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
several
yeah.
times a day.
And I'm sure it gets monotonous, but to pray from the heart, you got to
Mm.
pray differently. That's the way I see it. You got to pray. I mean, that's why I say when you pray, you yourself. You're talking to your spiritual self, to see where you're at, to see what you need, to see what you're doing. So, but anyway,
Yeah.
you go ahead.
No, I totally understand that. Yeah, that totally makes sense because I mean they always talked about when the thing that they kind of threw around. Sorry, we were clearing our throats before. But Christ consciousness, and I mean people throw that around without really understanding it, and I'm not going to stand above everybody else and say that I understand it 100%, but I do kind of get what it's getting at, which is, taking that light into ourselves because we are all, one. We're all, I am you, you are me, we are they are us. We are all
Yes,
one. So I mean, and that's even just, including like, what we consider to be people, which, could be different species. Then you're going on to, all the animals that are on, that exist next to us in the environment that we live in. And then all the plant life and then all the other sentient things that a lot of people don't think contain life. I mean, like one of the, oh, I wish I had a crystal here. What did I do with it? Okay, so I do have a citron right here. I must have put my other crystals in the other room. But I mean they're very crystals are sentient, I mean people probably think, You know, let's listen to the crazy lady. But yeah, you know, it's almost like like people that can feel like a different vibration around, you know, when you just cleanse your crystals and you put them up and they walk into the room and they're like, wow, you know, I feel that energy, you know, without even knowing what you're doing. But like, wow, what is that? You know, and it's like I just, you know, saged and cleansed and salted crystals, you know, or put them out, you know, at night. I was like, but you know, if they can feel it, which kind of like makes me feel kind of left out, you know, because I don't feel them that way, but I hear them. There's like a certain frequency that each one vibrates at, and I can hear it and feel
Mhm.
it. And that's, you know, I guess I'm just like a, and what'd you call me? Super duper empath. You know what I mean? And that's you know, so everybody's different. So someone's gonna feel something or, you know, resonate with something different than what you do. It doesn't mean anything other than the fact that that's how they connect with it. You know, that's how they resonate, they connect with something. And, you know, like one of the things, you know, that I managed to pick up and I was like, I was wanting this really bad. And it was like, you know, beaver caster, you know, because when I go into places that have very dark, dark energy or dark entities, you know, for protection, I will take that beaver caster, you know, and put it on all of my things that I'm smudging in my shell and I'll put it right on top as soon as it's lit. And I don't know what it is, but I think it's the smell, you know,
Mhm.
whatever it is, but they just gone, you know, the
Mhm.
energy is gone because I mean, I was like feeling it last night in the
Mhm.
astral. It was coming down on me, and it was just like, you know, it was like walking into, you know, it felt like walking into like you have a bathroom with no window, and you walk into the bathroom, and you go to shut and turn the light on, and the door shuts behind you, and you're in a total dark, dark, dark room. You know, I mean, some people panic. I know I did when I was younger. I was like, you know, horribly scared of the dark. Now, you know, I embrace it because, you know, it's a balance. And we all have to be balanced with lightness and, you know, with light and darkness. And I'm not saying, you know, you have to be a dark person, but you know, it's a balance within. You know, you could look at the darkness as your ego, you know, and you know, ego is always trying to protect, you know, everything inside. You know, that even like some people talk about, you know, well, you know, that's almost like a narcissist. You know, they protect, you know, the trauma that's held inside. So I go through a lot of these like cleansing things with like smudges and stuff, and I I don't know what happened. I think what happened to my medicine bag, but I think someone thought it was like, you know, drugs or something. And they opened it up and they realized what it was. And because, you know, they just threw it because it was easier than trying to put it back together and, you know, put it where they found it. Or announce that, you know, they didn't have the knowledge of what this really was or to even ask me, what is this? You know, and I wouldn't have said that's my medicine bag.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I've talked to him before and like, if you want to open it up, you know, it's just that I'm, you know, it's going with me. You know, it stays with me. And I haven't had one in a while, but it's like, you know, you as long as you have like a belief system of something that can protect you, you know, anything. You know, you could believe that, you know, you have like a what do you call it, like a Norse mythology type belief, you know, in like the Thor and Odin and Hela, and you could believe in that, and that is what keeps you safe. That is what, you know, protects your family, puts food on the table, and that's good. That's your belief system, you know. And there are other people that are like, you know, I won't name names, but you know, like a Southern Baptist, you know, and and I have never seen it really go good with some of the families that, you know, are so strict on the way that they bring up their family when they're kids. And I
Yeah.
don't,
Well, you know, back home, I think that's what's lacking a lot. A
oh
lot of
yeah,
the,
for sure.
a lot of the people my age and above, are saying that these young generation don't listen, and that's been foretold by the elders that I had. I mean, one of these days, these kids are gonna have uh, their own thoughts, their own thoughts about what is going on in the world out there. Because you know the world's gonna change, technology is gonna change, but don't worry, because you know when mothers had enough of it, it's gonna shift again. We'll
Mm-hmm.
we'll go back from the very beginning. So, these are some of the things that we were told. And, nowadays, I mean, I was, listening to some of the people that talk about the younger generation. They don't listen. They don't do this. They don't do that. It's the parents' fault. It's the parents. Well, you know, I can't really blame who at this point. Is it the parents, or is it society, or is it the community that
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't uh, show any love anymore? But if you show love constantly to your kids, believe me, they don't want to let go. They
Mm-hmm.
don't want to let go. Or if they let go, they're gonna hang on to you, because they know that you are the nest for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so these kids, my kids and everybody else's kids, my kids, I'm just thankful that they left and the reservation, and they've been off the reservation, because they're happy where they're at. They've been, well, they've all had jobs that they've had for a long time. So I mean, it's great to know that they're self-sufficient. They're on their own. They're
Mm-hmm.
doing it. They're working out. I mean, they don't have to go back to, and they don't get in trouble, because they know the consequences of the law
Right.
and everything. Where you know that is Superman, but Superman has to obey the law, or he get the kryptonite thrown at him. But you know,
Yeah, right.
so it's always good, but they know that that is going to be a leader. That is going to take care of them. If they have a concern, they'll come out and da, 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 da. I know that. I know that. I'm grown. I said, that's right. And then however they feel they need to take care of it, they'll take care of it and move on. They don't. And what biggest thing I taught my kids how to do is forgive and forget. Because you know, as I keep sharing the knowledge of, if you're a healer, you got to forgive and forget about what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Live for today. Don't worry about the
Mm-hmm.
past. Don't worry about the future, but today, this very moment. Because if you don't forgive in the past, that's going to be one hidden modality that's going to really stop you from raising your vibration.
Right.
Because when you raise your vibration, you're ready to go, and that hidden motion comes and boom, hits you. There it goes.
Mm-hmm.
All that preparation and all that, things that you
Yeah.
did, but
Learning to
it's
forgive is healing yourself. You cannot be a healer if you are holding grudges or, holding in all this lower energy. And I know I had issues with my family, and I just kind of, everybody's like, "Oh, she ran away." No, I'm putting distance, between someone that I consider to be very negative. And like the energies are not something that I would align myself with if they weren't family. So I'm not going to align myself with them, even if they are family. I don't align with that. I don't agree with it. I don't want to be around that energy. And that's my right. We all have to like take in and love ourselves. That's the first thing. Gotta love you, because you can't
Mhm.
love anybody if you can't love yourself. And that's like, People are just like, oh, that's like, so easy, but it's really not. Because you have to go back and like all these things that you've done since you were like, old enough to really understand what right and wrong was. And you've done that. You had to forgive yourself, you had to love yourself, and then you have to shine that to others. You have to forgive them and you have to love them. Unconditional love. I'm not saying, lay down and be, a rug for people to wipe their feet on. I'm just saying, you can love somebody, and it can be from a distance. You can still love them, and forgive them. But you're building your own your life, your creation, you're the creator of your own world. You're the one that's building it. And it's just so much power to be able to step into that and just be like, you know what, this is how I'm going, this is how I'm going to look at it, something in a different manner instead of the way that I've always looked at it, which has kept me in a lower frequency, very angry, very mad all the time. Every time I thought about it, my blood would boil, and that's not good. That's not stepping into your healing,
That's stepping into your life
light,
path, huh?
right? You're going backwards and you can't
Yeah.
heal people if you're feeling like this or you're like, love and light and blessed be and all this stuff. And then you get in your car and you're like racing people down, giving them the middle salute and revving your engine and trying to run them down in the car,
Well,
having road rage.
I always thought when they gave me the middle finger, I was number one.
That's what I
That's the way
look
I look
at.
at it. That's the way I look at it. Thank you. I know I'm
Thank
number one.
you.
Thank you.
Don't give it back, but I just
No, no.
do the
Well,
do the,
peace. You're number two
the
then.
wave.
Yeah, giving the peace. But I mean, it's just so funny how we grew up on things, and one of the things that I was really watching a comedian says, you know, when you go to the South, they tell you, bless your heart,
Mm.
but you better stand back and watch what they're really saying. What they're not really blessing your heart, and some of the things that we always come about, it's funny how when we were raised, because you know when the elders, used to teach me, they said, and I did something wrong, you know, I didn't get a belt, I didn't get a whooping, I never got a whooping. My daddy never spanked me, nothing, not one time. My daddy never spanked me, and all he would say is, "Did you learn something from him?" And if we want to get away from him, he says, "Yes, I did. Yes, I did." He says, "What?" You know. But then, so next time, if we did something wrong, and he asks us, "Did you learn something from it?" We definitely have to have a essay written and read it to him to say, "Okay, this is what I learned." Da, 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 da. But no, if we tell him what we learned from him, yes, he says, "Yes, I'm glad you learned from it. Now, you won't do it again." No, I've learned enough. I'm not going to try it again. So, everything we did wrong, it was always asked, what did you learn from it? What did you learn from it? And to where, it builds up your subconscious level. So when you go up to go do it again, your subconscious level says, you already told your dad you learned this from it. Now, what else are you going to try to learn from it this time around? You say, what the hell? And you turn around, walk away, but some of the kids I've known, I mean, they get beaten so hard that they build that wall to where they don't want to talk about it. So if they're asked, what did you learn from it? I don't want to talk about it. I got that heart beat out of me, and I lost about a couple of layers of skin off of that one event that I did, but it shouldn't be that way. You know, my kids would tell you, I never spanked them because there was no use. What did you learn from it? What did you learn from it? And they would tell me. But these are the ways of the teachings that I learned where, you know, nothing that was a spiritual. That's the best spiritual part that I learned about not getting any punishment because you know it's spiritual life. When I was going through my spiritual training, it was not about fear mongering. It was not about getting threatened. If you do this, then this gonna come beat you. The other, it wasn't about that. It was about, hey, we love you. We love Mother Earth. Father loves us. So why do we need to do that? If you learn from it, it's like being awoke. Once you waken up, you know what is right and what is wrong. What is a dark? What is a light? You learn this or that or this. And like they say, like they always tell us, yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, you know, and there's always a time to change the road that you're on. So, and
Hmm.
because I've had one person come up to me and says, "Hey, when I was younger, you know, this is what I said," and basically he gave his life in order to preserve another life. Is this right or wrong? I said, "Well, I'm not going to answer that question, but the whole thing behind this is, are you ready to forgive and let it go?" And so he looked at me and says, "Is it that easy?" I said, "Yes. Yes, it's that easy. Forgiving yourself is that easy." And they said, "Well, it's easier for you to say." I said, "No." I won't give you a Bible story. She goes, "Oh." I said, "But anyway, it is written. When Jesus was in the book of Luke, Jesus was hung with two people, right? One was a murderer and one was a thief or whatever.
Thief, yeah.
And then the thief goes, "Hey, if you are really Christ, save yourself, save yourself, save yourself." While the murderer looked at him and says, "I know who you are. You are son of the living God." And he started pointing out who it was, everything. And Jesus looked at him and says, "On this day, you will be with me in paradise." In other words, he was forgiven that minute that he
Hmm.
recognized who he was.
Hmm.
So we should look at it that way. Our lives say, "Father, I made a mistake. Creator, I made a mistake. I'm ready to change my way right now," and put an effort into changing your way. And you're on the right path. It's never too late. I don't care how old you are or how young you are. If you're ready, now need help. That's why Eve and I are here for.
Hmm.
People, I'm telling you, we are here for, and you know, you need to get a hold of us for mentoring. I'll be glad to do it. And I know she will be glad to do it. So go ahead, add on some more.
Oh, I was just listening to you. I had some things to say. I totally forgot what I was going to say though. Um, I I think it was like 2016. I had a near-death experience. I had been, um, in my words, a person who didn't love themselves, who didn't have the ability to be able to love others, that didn't have like all of everything that we just talked about. I was not the person that you ever really wanted around you. I mean, my mother was a bully, and she bullied me to the point where I became a bully. And I look back at that now, you don't see the mistakes as you're making them, because you're laying like the tracks down. It's not until you turn around and you see the tracks and where they came from and what's left behind, you finally understand that, life here, or we're not here for very long. And we're not living the 800 years like they did in the Bible. We're not here that long, and I mean, I just, hypothetically put out, what if I thought that we were here for, the time adjustment? Technically, wherever we are, we might be only, you know, here for a week, but it feels, we've been here 70, 80 years, so it's like life isn't very, long. I made a lot of mistakes. And this was in 2016. So this was like 9 years ago. So that was like 43, I think, at the time. And, I just could never finish school, just couldn't ever just stay away from alcohol, that type of person, or stay away from a fight. I was always the one that always wanted to argue with everybody. And when I had that and I came back, I had been, had my NDE, I had overdosed, I was gonzo. I woke up and I was like in this black emptiness. And it's like it's a self-reflection, you know. That was what was inside me was just black emptiness. And it was like, people always ask me, what do you think happens after you die? This is before I really awoke and realized that we don't really die. We're energy. We go on. Energy can never be destroyed. So we go on for eternity. And I thought, I was like, you just get dumped in the ground and it's dark and that's where you stay forever. And I don't know if I was just trying to be flippant about it or what, but I actually felt like that's where I was, just dumped in the ground and forgotten and it was dark. And I was like, this is not how I want things to go. So when I came back, I remember that. Like I just kept repeating over and over and over, and everybody was like, what are you saying? But I was saying, I almost, effed everything up. And I was like, I was here, sent here for this mission, and I couldn't, I couldn't deal with a lot of things. I don't know if it was just finding myself to be, a double water sign. So I'm like super empathy, super water, not watery, but super, well, that too. But no, just, I can feel so much. I can feel pain from a very far distance. I can feel others hurting. I mean, I've had to learn how to separate those emotions to see if it's really me hurting or if I'm feeling somebody else that, my friends, my family, or somebody that I love is hurting. And usually, if it's not me, then I go searching because I'm not going to let someone hurt like that. But I mean, I am like going back to that night. I just like sitting here and I was like, I almost after everything up. That's the only thing I could say, and I just kept saying over and over and over, it's not too late. It's never too late. Just like the gentleman that was on the cross next to Jesus when he was dying, he asked for forgiveness, knowing that he wasn't going to live very long, and he was granted that. It's like, can you imagine just having every single thing that you've done wrong pinned on your jacket or your sweater, and it's like, heavy, and it keeps getting heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. Can you imagine being able to just throw that off and going from having this heavy weight on you and all these lower vibrations of guilt, shame, and depression, and throwing it off and realizing that you are the creator of your own world. Don't they tell us ever since we were really little that we just had high imaginations and that we weren't anything special. And I'm here to tell you that's a lie. That is a total and utter lie. We are miracles. We are light. We are divine. We are immortal. All of us. Don't let them sit there and tell you that you're less than, because you're not. You're more than enough. You just got to be able to see that. Just got to be able to, to love yourself. Forgive yourself most of all. Forgive others. Because we're coming in an age where we have to let go of those emotions. That's what I was told. You have to go through like your trauma, your what is it, the dark night of the soul. You have to go through, your rock bottom. You have to go through living your worst fear. You know, you have to do this. That's what we came here for. We came for all these experiences. And if you're just, like scared to even live your life, you're not living out your mission to be here, to experience everything, including pain, and to be able to transcend that pain, be able to transcend it to like mother and turn it into something greater than, unconditional love for all. acceptance for all skin colors, for all people. It's, it's so easy. It's so easy. Just, we just have to do it. Just accept everybody. Just love everybody. Get through it together. I
Mhm.
mean, sorry, I'm getting emotional, but it's like written. I see it written on the wall, and everybody's just like fighting over Republican or, Democrat or, meat or no meat or even worse. And it's just, people know about what's going on and we need to do something about it. I don't know what we need to do, but we need to put our heads together and come up with a solution because, our people and we're all the same tribe, so it's our people are going missing, you know, um, and all the horrible, evil, icky stuff that's going on, and we all know about it, but nobody wants to talk about it. We had to do something. 'Cause they're poisoning us, they're hurting our children, and they're keeping our lights really low with like a lot of horrible things, just like wireless technology. And I mean, even now I was like sitting there and I was laying in bed and I could hear my light bulb like give off a frequency. And I was just like, well, that's weird because I went to go look for just like a normal old fashioned light bulb and all they had was LEDs. Now, what if they're making these LEDs give off a frequency to keep us lower, keep us sad, So, I mean, that's why we're like, go out, get out in nature, ground yourself, drink in the sun. If that's a real sun, go out and drink it out. But, go out into nature, get out of your house, get away from these things. You got your internet router, that's giving off a lot of stuff. I took one of these, and this isn't just conspiracy. I mean, I took one of those I think electricians have them so they can find, live wires behind the wall or whatever. And I was finding that my TV was giving off, like it was flashing red. My phone, if I got close to my phone was blinking. I mean, even something as mundane as like an oven or a refrigerator was giving off even a low, even it's plugged in. It was still giving off a frequency. I mean, are they keeping us, all down from this stuff? I just need to get out of the nature. I think I'm gonna get a tent and just go live out. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snort to you.
Well, that's pretty intense, very intense because in my personal life, I've had a lot of challenges, and by having a lot of challenges, I woke up even more and realized the things that my elders were teaching me that I could put to use. And, you know, everybody says, you're like the type of person that don't really give a hoot about what's going on. And I said, well, I do. I do care about what's going on in the world. I do care about what's going on with my kids. I do care about what's going on with everybody. But, you know, I can't get into their ways because, they may not want to change. They may enjoy that. But it's all because of what is promised out there. And some of the things that, you know, we might as well just push it out that the dark uses to get our attention. The number one thing the dark uses to get our attention is money. And whether to bail us out, whether to, say, you deserve this or anything, but they use that to really to see how much we are attracted to,
Mm-hmm.
that one thing, money. And then once they see that, they know how to, believe me, the dark is constantly out there looking at you, observing you to find your weakness. But if you're always connected, with the creator, with Mother Earth and all that, your guidance, your angels, your ETs, whoever is protecting you, if you're constantly connected with them, they blindfold the dark, which is good. And that keep you one step ahead. This past 2 years has waking me up so many ways about the way the dark has tried to get us. And I'm gonna go ahead and tell it like it is, because one of the things that they tried to get us was, when we were in Arkansas, you know, they would literally, the number one thing that they use is, I asked the question. He says, we saw in London, the Eiffel Tower. I said, why is that? Why is that? I said, where is it near? And I looked at it, and there's water running next to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how dumb could I be not figuring that out? Because I've been always telling people about the Jefferson Memorial,
Yes, I was just going to mention that.
you know, where is that? You know, and all these things. And I seen a bunch of them in Arkansas. They'd have a big old obelisk standing in front of the lake, and I said, why? And I think somebody was talking about, how Wi-Fi, who invented Wi-Fi? That's what it was.
Oh,
The smart
wireless.
actress that I was reading about, who founded
Greta,
Wi-Fi.
is it Greta
Yeah,
Garbo or something like that?
yeah. And as
Or
I was
Hedy
reading
Lamar,
about,
Hedy Lamar, something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Dutch actor and self-taught scientist. She discovered about Wi-Fi because she discovered it to direct missiles, and all these kind of things using electronic energy. And so when I was thinking about that, I said, wow, and then of course, I had to put my 2 cents in. I said, that's why, I learned about wave propagation. Wave propagation is bouncing frequencies of the water. That's why when you see an obelisk
Ah.
standing there, it's got to be near water so they can bounce off the waves, the
That's what I was
frequencies.
like too. I was like going through something. I don't know what something just told me, but it was like high structures, that are by waters, and I was also doing. I had what I realized was that Fargo was built on stilts, so it has like a supporting underground structure underneath the city. And then now we're finding out things about Giza and Giza having, these mega structures underneath the big pyramid, the large pyramid. And now like these waterways. Like you have the Nile and that, and Fargo has the Red River, and it's kind of weird because, they're above the equator, they're in the northern hemisphere, and both rivers run north, which I know is not that big of an issue because I know the elevation, land, the way it's built and everything, it could be built higher up, it could be running up, we could look at people's claim of, the round earth, flat earth, and everything in between. And it's like, I've had people tell me there's no relevance there. I'm like, okay, I'm not looking for relevance. I'm looking for similarities. And, with all these, mega structures that are built underground, underneath cities, what do they serve their purpose? And then they have like a conductor, which is water.
Mhm.
Then you have places that are built that are like limestone, and they're like, well, we need to put like all these, these so that the city doesn't just collapse because it's limestone, and limestone is also a conductor too. You know, I mean, all these things that, you just have to take it into consideration and think about them, and I mean, you put it out there, and I mean, I'm not saying that I'm a genius. I'm just like, oh, well, this is the same as this, and this is the same as that, and they're both together very close. And I mention it, I mean, and do your own research, because I mean, I'm not going to do it for you. Nobody did mine for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have been doing it.
Well, even to go not too far back,
Hmm.
because I used to go to the Great Kiva ruins back home. I used to go to Chaco Canyon, go to Mesa Verde and all that. And when you
Hmm.
see their kivas, it is perfect, round, rounded building, perfect circle. No deviation whatsoever. You get a compass and draw on it and not, touch every wall and not go anywhere further out. But, it'd be a perfect circle. Now, how did they come up with that building it? And they're
Hmm.
only little people now. They're little people. How did they come about? Chaco Canyon is same way. We don't understand that. But scientists are still scratching their head about that. But, you know, the way Chaco Canyon was built, from the way the elders used to tell me, is that you watch. One day they're gonna figure it out. And there was these windows that were all lined up in one of the ruins, and when the summer equinox comes, just for like maybe 15 to 30 seconds, there is a line of shadow that goes through that window. And when they finally figured it out about that line and shadow, and they got a satellite picture of it, it is a perfect triangle from the three ruins that were about 125 miles apart.
Mm,
That
yeah.
shadow was a perfect triangle when the and winter equinox come. And it's only there for like 15 seconds because that's when the earth stops tilting for about
Hmm.
15 seconds, it goes back up again,
Hmm.
you know. And and I think that's the way these elders used to tell me, when the earth is fixing to shift, those lines are going to start wobbling. And I haven't been keeping up with it, but I bet you if they look at it, when that shadow comes, they'll have a little wave on it. Because now, according to the third hand shaking prophecy, the sun comes up and it goes back down. It comes back up, it goes down. And it goes up and they'll clear it, but then they'll go back down just a little more. Then they'll clear it all the way and they'll continue going up. And I keep asking, why? And that's because the earth is wobbling that much. That's why the sun comes up and goes down like that.
Hmm.
If you're up if your horizon is on a mountaintops, you see it in the morning, and when the sun comes up, you go back down, up and down. And I said, wow. And every equinox, I think about that, whether it's summer or winter equinox. I think about looking over the horizon. I could just see the sun go up and up and up. And when I think about that, I think about, if it's wobbling that bad, and they're already saying that the Mother Earth will take care of itself. Are we
Hmm.
due for another, you know, Earth shift? No, are we due for another shift? Because I have a friend back home that tells me that Zuni used to be at the equator.
Oh,
And
I
I
believe
said,
it.
okay. And so, that's how much we moved and not probably because of the continental drift, but, a lot of things, I mean, all these things that are told in back home about the earth and everything, people tend to forget, but some of us people that really listen, I see it. It's just like there used to be I met a good friend of mine who's a good podcaster too. He was doing a video about the petroglyphs, hieroglyphs in Zuni, and he was told a story, and the story was wrong. And I said, I'm gonna clarify that story. And then, And I told him, I said, look, the difference between the two eggs, that's in our migration story, we have a part where there are two eggs. One was a colorful egg, the other one was a plain blue egg. Those that picked the blue egg went south. Those that picked the colorful egg went north when it came to where they had to split the tribe. And so those that took the blue egg, when their egg hatched, it was a macaw parrot.
Hmm.
But the colorful egg, when it hatched, it was a crow. And so the people started complaining about why did they get a beautiful, colorful bird, the beautiful, colorful feathers on that bird, and we just got a black one. And of course, graders or
Hmm.
whomever that was with them says,
So colors.
look at your black feather. It's just as pretty as that macaw feather. Oh no, that macaw feather just got, blue, red, orange, yellow feathers on them, and all we got's a black one. And then they said, put it under the sun.
Hmm.
You get a crow feather, put it under the sun and let it reflect. Look at the rainbow colors coming out of off of it. And
It
they
is.
said,
They're so beautiful.
yeah. And they
It's
said,
a iridescent.
yeah. They said, wow. So, these things that are told of us, we like to keep. We like to continue to say it is here. Let's just learn from it. And so my message for you people out there today is that, you know, life is short. Share the love, understand the peace, and provide forgiveness. Because that's how we'll get ahead. And Eve, what's your word for the people?
Mm, I think a lot of it is, realizing that like you're mirroring out how you feel on the inside to others, to like, what I see. And so if you are like, you just you have so much negativity and you keep it all inside and you don't talk about it and you just you're nice to people that know you but you're really mean to people that don't know you and you go places and no one wants to wait on you because you're just such a bad person and then you get called Karen or something else and you're reflecting what's on the inside out. So wouldn't it be just like working on yourself, and then being able to reflect out everything that is wonderful, everything that you've discovered about yourself, and being able to like throw that out at people. Gosh, just all the good energy. So, I really, my heart is working with people that are dealing with trauma, that are dealing with a lot of, you know, feelings about themselves that aren't good. I just want to grab you and just like hug you and be
Yeah.
like, I want to force these good feelings on you, because there's like something good about everybody, and there's something, people have faults. I mean, I'm not perfect. I know that. Oh my gosh, no. I was sitting here and everything looks really nice, but I'm wearing like gym shorts, because nobody ever sees me sitting down. But I mean, just we're all here. We all signed up for this huge mission. And if you were going to climb a mountain, it's not about competing to who gets to the top first. It's about everybody getting there in one piece and doing so by helping each other out you know. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh man, that was amazing," when they're watching football and the other team member gets knocked down really hard and somebody from the opposite team comes over and helps them up. And everybody's like, "Yeah, that's good sportsmanship. Yeah, yeah," but then they go out and have a big brawl in the parking lot after the game. You got to be able to help people up when they fall, you know. just just be able to do that because at some point, most of us, I won't say everybody, knows what it's like to fall down and knows what it's like when everybody just turns their back on you and you just either have issues getting up, needing help or whatever. But I mean, just count on yourself first, and then exactly what Greg said, and exactly what I was bawling about like 15 minutes ago. So
All right. Well, it's about time. We don't want to bore everybody out, so
I know I'm
we
getting
will
sleepy.
continue our talk next week. And we enjoy this. I mean, we enjoy different topics, and we're gonna probably start more getting into living on a reservation because hey, I'm gonna get a chance to go home for a couple of days because I'm gonna be leaving here Tuesday, come back Saturday. I got some things. I got family business I got to take care of, and also some talk to some elders while I'm out there and
Hmm.
get a little rejuvenated,
Hmm.
And so, but we're gonna do a podcast out there too. So don't get me wrong. I'm gonna show you the mountains. I'm gonna show you where I live, and so we're gonna really. I look forward to going, but this ain't till like the third week of April. So, but before then, we're gonna come up with some good topics. So, I enjoy your time, Eve, and I enjoy your knowledge, what you're sharing, and for those of you that are listening, I thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel, One Nation Tribal Alliance, and your channel, Time Disclosure.
Oh,
Or
sorry. I
no.
was zoning off. Yes, Prime. I have Prime Indigenous, and Prime Indigenous is you can find that on Rumble, and all you have to do is look up Prime Declassified Podcast. You'll find both podcasts there because I didn't think about making two different ones because it's already enough work to do all the promos. It's it's hard enough. I try not to put too much on top of me, but yeah. So you can find that on Rumble. Eve Howard on Facebook. I have Prime Declassified is also on Facebook and TikTok. So just give me a
Okay.
holler. Yep.
And you can find me at One Nation Tribal Alliance YouTube channel and at Facebook and at website at healthyandharmoniouslifestyle.com. So thank you for watching us, and we love you all, and y'all have a wonderful weekend. Bye bye.